Hey everyone, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Today I want to review the Aera, I think it's Aera, D-1 diver. If you saw my other video on the P1, the pilot, you'll already have something of a background on it, on the company, on the watch itself. So I will link that below. Obviously, a fair amount of what I'm going to say about the D1 applies to the P1 because they use the same case, and that's a case and movement, but everything else is pretty much different. But as you can see, as you saw coming into the photo that I took, you can see they're very similar in their basic design concept. So basic background, it's a relatively new company. They have two primary products right now, the D1 and the P1. I own the P1 and am now going to review the D1. They were nice enough to sent it to me to take a look at. So background, the way I ended up with the P1, actually, see, I'm really a diver. Like a tool watch diver guy. And I actually ended up with the P1 because I realized that I own basically nothing but divers. And I made a concerted effort to diversify my meager collection. And so I actually sold some divers. I sold a two-door, got a Aera GMT, and I never owned a pilot watch. And I honestly just never really liked most of the pilot watches I saw. And so when I saw the Aera pilot watch, it checked off all the boxes for me. Looks, materials, good quality movement. I thought the price per value of watch was very high, and so I went with it. Really liked it. Did a review. But truth be told, I'm a tool watch guy, and I like divers because, of course, they're a tool watch that has a dive rating or a water rating. They tend to be rugged, overbuilt, and I like the way they look. And so, honestly, if in my normal buying habit, I probably would have actually got the D1 just because I like divers. And so I think you're going to find that I lean actually pretty heavily towards the D1. And if I didn't have the P1 and all the divers that I probably should own, I'd be happy to get it. So that's sort of basic background. And like I say, for some additional info, definitely check out the P1 review below this. Let's just go down the basics, before I kind of get into it. So the case is made of 904L. 904L is what most people associate with Rolex. Rolex is not the only company that uses 904L, though. I know Ball uses 904L. I think some Seiko watches have 904. Other brands, but it's not that common. I mean, 904 is a lot less common than 316. 316 is sort of the reference stainless steel that most watches will be made of, and it's very good steel. 904L on paper should be actually a little more resistant to rust and such, and staining, I believe. But again, anybody that's owned a 316 watch, dive watch, whatever, they don't tend to suffer extensive rust or corrosion in my experience. But 904L also has a different luster, has a different look. If you've ever seen, have you ever seen a Rolex or stuff? There's a different. It has a different coloration to it than 316 does. 316 is a little whiter and a little cooler coloration wise. Now, the interesting thing about the Aera is that they're actually using a brushed 904L, and I have never seen that. And if somebody wants to correct me below, I've seen a company do a brushed 904L. I haven't seen it, but so that's something unique to the company, and it does look different. Again, I have to say it sort of reminds me more of titanium. It's really nice. Again, I kind of think that I'd actually like to see a non-brushed version of their watch, perhaps with a viewable case back, sort of a fancier, dressier version. But that's just me. Anyway, but I like it. I think brushed 904L is really nice, and I'd be interested actually to know what their decision making was to try a brushed 904L. Other than that, again, you can see what I like about the P1 and the D1 is that I think they've pulled off a tough balance here, which is that they've maintained the essential elements of a diver and a pilot watch while bringing something new visually. That's sort of this modernized, this sort of a modern version of the pilot and the diver. And I think that's not easy to pull off. I think they've really hit a balance there. Because sometimes, especially in divers, because divers have become very popular. But I think there's a lot of, I'm going to say, quote unquote divers, and annoying air quotes, which is to say that although they have a dive rating, they're not probably very useful divers, frankly. I think that to do a proper diver, you should maintain the sort of essential elements of a diver, and I think that, and I'm not a diver, so let's be honest. Though I think that the D-1 retains the essential elements of a diver that an ag diver would actually use, and maybe again if there's somebody who dives regularly and wants to correct me on that, by all means go ahead. But I think that is the balance that they struck. The domed crystal. I really like the domed crystal. I like. It's a big chunky crystal. Again, I would suspect that's not an inexpensive thing to produce. The crystal. The movement is a Salida 200-1, I believe. It's an excellent Swiss-made, well-vetted workhorse movement that I think is a good choice. Again, in the price point, I think considering the other things that this watch delivers as far as the case metal quality, the dome sapphire, the straps, which we'll get to in a minute. I think that's a really key topic that I think I should have stressed the straps even a little more on the P1, but we're going to get to straps in a minute. I think that in the price point, they are offering an excellent value here. So let's talk straps. The straps. This watch. What they've done with this watch is they offer integrated straps that, again, I have not seen too many companies offer these custom designed and produced straps for the watch itself. And when you order the D1 or the P1, they offer you 3 different straps, not 1, but 3. These are very nicely made straps, and they are made. Let's see if you can see. All right, so you see, here's the D1. Look at how the strap meets the body, meets the case. You see, there's no line there at all. There's no gap whatsoever. That's the rubber strap, obviously. That's unique to them. They offer their own straps. Now I'm going to show you a picture of. You can see I've got quite the strap collection at this point for the P1, and it really does do wonders for that watch. I mean, anytime you want a different feel or look, if you want to dress the watch up, you want to dress the watch down, you can do it with their straps, and I think that's a tremendous design touch for them. Again, if anybody wants to list brands that do something similar, I mean, you do see that with bracelets. Now, there are a number, of course, integrated bracelet watch companies. Now, I actually have a Zenith Defy with an integrated bracelet, which is beautiful. But I have not seen any, or at least not too many, that, again, comes to my mind, of companies that do the integrated strap on the watch. And they're very well made. The buckle is 904L. They're beefy, well-made straps. I have nothing negative to say about them. As you can see, I'm pretty strapped up. If I had to say one negative, my feedback to them, because they did ask me, what did I think of the straps and what was my feedback on the straps. My only feedback on the straps is, if you're going to offer a tool watch, you need straps that are designed for a tool watch. And by that, I mean waterproof, sweat-proof, that you can, jump into the ocean, jump into the pool, work out, sweat, all that. And the only strap that they offer you can do that with is the rubber one. And I like the rubber one. The rubber one, it's very good quality rubber. It's fairly comfortable. I don't really, comfort-wise, again, I'm not a huge fan of rubber straps, I have to admit. I'm a big fan of things like Hirsch Performance straps. If you don't know Hirsch Performance straps, I recommend you look into them. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of rubber straps, mostly because I sweat under them. And these, again, they've done a really good job. Let's see if I can show you. Let's see if we can get this on camera. In their rubber strap, they have put these sort of Let's see if there you go. I think you can see that. So they're putting those indentations in like that. You don't just have the rubber flat up against your body. It does help with airflow and stuff. But either way, if it was hot out, I'm in Florida. It's not that hot out right now. But if it was a hot day out, I'd be sweating under that rubber strap. And I don't like NATO straps. Again, some people say, well, just put a NATO strap on, which is fine if you like NATO straps. I don't like the way they look. I think they, to me, they just take a really good looking watch and cheapen them. But that's me. However, again, what these guys are doing, which is unique, I think fairly unique, if not totally, is that upside down? Totally unique to them, is these integrated straps. And I think we really need to focus on that. Now, there's also some things that are unique to them. I think, again, you will note that on the crown, they embed some Lume. I think that's really nice. See that blue? And I'll put a picture of some Lume up in a second. Oh, God, everything you have to go backward. There we go. I think the touches on this watch, as far as the upside down, sorry, look, I'm not going to win any production values here, people, so don't give me a hard time. I'm no Teddy Baldassar. But the matching blue, and then there is the second hand. Look, if you can see the second hand, there's also a matching blue. See it? Anyway, you can see in the photos. My point being, let's see if there's any other details I'm missing about this. So I think what I want to, sizing. Let's talk about the size. Sorry, I'm going backward. So the D-1 is 44 millimeters and the P-1 is 43. So 1 millimeter difference. I have to say they do wear very differently. The P-1 doesn't wear big, as they like to say. It wears to me, to my eyes, to my aesthetics. I think it doesn't wear big. The D1 does. The D1 wears every bit a 44 millimeter watch. It's not a shrinking. This is not a shrinking violet watch. This is a true tool dive watch for people that want a really well built, good looking. I think it's very good looking. Anyway, unique dive watch again that I think brings some modern industrial visual elements that makes it stand out. I think it's a really good looking watch. Both of them are, but I have to say the P1 I don't find wears big. I mean, it's not a small watch, but it's not a big. The D1 does. The D1 wears every bit 44 millimeters, and I like it. I will say, sizing wise, let's talk sizing for people who may. People that are watch people, this is not, you'll know this. But some people that are not, they'll ask about sizing. There's an objective way to size watches, and there's a subjective way. Let me put this back on so I can demonstrate a little bit. Hold on. Okay. So the objective way that most people are taught to size a watch is that basically if the lugs go past your wrist, it's too big. Okay. So that way. Okay, so you see the lugs are not going past my wrist. They're basically at the edge of my wrist. And I've got 6.5 inch wrist. I got a little wrist, I got a little bird wrist. But you can see the lugs are within my wrist. Objectively speaking, that fits. The subjective way to size watches is basically, do you like it? I mean, if you subjectively don't like the way it looks, then it's subjectively not the size for you. It's too big or it's too small. I have to say my basic philosophy on watches is that life is too small for small watches. Life is too short for small watches. I haven't had all my coffee. That's my view. To me, 39 millimeters is about the smallest watch I'm going to own. And I think 40, 42 is kind of the sweet spot. But as you can see, I have no problem wearing 44. I have a Jaeger-LeCoultre, I think I'm pronouncing that right, dive watch, which is 44. We got the D1 that's 44. So again, the subjective way, to size a watch is whether you like it. If you think it looks good and it makes you happy, then it works. I think objectively though, if the lugs go past your wrist, it's just too big for you. That's my take home on that. I don't think anything else I can say. And there is, like I say, a lot of what I'm saying about the D1 today. There's more information on the P1 which will apply, other than the visuals. Lume, I will say that I'm not a big Lume guy. I would not make a decision to buy a watch or not buy a watch based on Lume. But I have to say the Lume on the D1 is outstanding. outstanding. That picture I put up, I know is a little fuzzy, but it was a pitch black room. But I have to say, if you're somebody that appreciates Lume, it's very well thickly applied super luminova Lume, and it is very noticeable in the dark, much more so than the P1. And it makes sense only because there's just more of it. I mean, you can just see there's larger. There's just more Lume on the D1. Finally, I think what I will say is from a fit and finish. Again, you don't know what a watch. You all had this experience. The watch looks good in a photo and a video, and then when you get to pick it up and put it on your wrist or whatever, you're just not that impressed. That's only happened to me with one micro brand so far, of which I reviewed. All the other micro bands I've reviewed so far, I've been more than impressed with them in person once I got them. Only one is not. But I will say that the Aera passes what I call the loop test. This is a loop. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these guys, but a lot of watch people will have them. But I've actually had this loop, this Agfa loop since '83 or '84. And what these guys were used for was actually looking at film from film cameras. So you take the negative and you'd put it right up to it, and you'd be able to see. Whether you wanted to use a negative. Now, a lot of you watching this probably have never even seen a film camera and have never experienced one. But remember, back in the day, we didn't have digital cameras. So I've actually had this bad boy since the 80s. And what you do with it, of course, is you can really, you put it up to the watch, and you can really look closely for imperfections, whether the Lume is put on cleanly, whether there's even dust particles or anything in there. And I will say that the Aera passes the loop test beautifully, and so is the P1. So when you really get up close and you're looking for. Now, you'd be surprised at some of the brands that don't pass the loop test very well. If I had to name a sort of one that's notorious for that, it's Rolex. I've had 3 Rolexes, by the way, and Rolex they're what we call quality control. Their quality control. Sometimes Rolex passes the loop test beautifully, and sometimes it doesn't. And some people get rather upset about that. But just FYI, there are some very big names that do not always pass the loop test that well, and you may find dust particles, or you may find that some of the indices in the Lume is not as cleanly put on as you'd hope for, and so forth. So I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. To summarize, if you are looking for a unique, really well-built diver tool watch that feels as good as it looks, I would suspect will last you forever, and will do anything you want it to do, the D1 absolutely gets my recommendation. I think, as I've said, I said it about the P1. I've said it about some other brands that I really think that. If you were to put another well-known brand on this watch and they charge a whole lot more, 3 to 4 times as much, I don't think people would blink an eye. As always, there's a pro and a con to going with micro brands. Name recognition, provenance, history, and all that. And that's okay. I mean, that's part of the watch buying experience. If that's something that's important to you, well then, you're willing to pay, and you're okay paying more for that aspect. But it doesn't really have anything to do necessarily with the quality of the watch. Or anything else. So keep that in mind. Those are always the pros and cons of going with things like micro brands or not. I kind of, if you look at my history review in the last couple of years, I kind of went down a rabbit hole of micros. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's kind of changed their whole view of the watch industry. And I think it is, in some respects, turning the watch industry on their head. And I think if these 2 watches Aera is putting out is any indication, I think they're here to stay, and I think they're going to be one to watch. That's all I have to say. I hope this was a helpful review, and please sub up and like and watch more videos from yours truly.